Welcome to the Bourbon and Breakthroughs podcast, where entrepreneurs reveal their biggest breakthroughs, both in life and in business. I'm your host, Chris Goodman, and I'm a life and business coach on a mission to help people change their lives and grow their businesses. On this show, you'll get to distill your own life-changing lessons from my friends, clients, and the best entrepreneurs around the world. During our conversation, we feature and taste a new or notable bourbon, or something like it, and raise a glass to personal development, business growth, and squeezing every drop out of life. So whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, join us for this episode of Bourbon and Breakthroughs. Cheers. All right, everybody, welcome back to Bourbon and Breakthroughs, where I sit down with a fascinating guest who has some story to tell about their breakthroughs in life and business, some advice to give you in your life and business, and so on. Of course, we have a fascinating bourbon to go with that today. Today, it's on the other side. It's sponsored by our friends down at Rabbit Hole in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. We're having the Cavehill expression today. And with me is Dr. Jon Connelly. Jon, thanks for coming on again.
My pleasure, sir.
So if you have been following the podcast Relentless Growth before it was Bourbon and Breakthroughs, you probably caught Jon on episode 110. And guys, this continues to be every week one of the top downloaded episodes I've ever recorded. That one was about how Dr. Jon has learned to heal trauma in as little as 3 or 4 minutes, painlessly, easily, and all through his groundbreaking work that he calls rapid resolution therapy. Is that a fair way to portray it, Jon?
Well, 3 to 4 minutes, I don't want to overpromise, but I think we get it done more quickly and painlessly than it seems to be happening for others. And I think there's, when you ask me, I can tell you where I see the difference, as I was just sort of thinking about that this morning prior to our meeting.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get into that because we always do when we talk. And I am a walking, talking testimonial for Dr. Jon. He's helped me in a one-on-one session and in several conversations uncover and bring things to light. And I don't know, for lack of a better term, just clear them out. So if you're unfamiliar with Dr. Jon's work, he has 2 books you can go pick up, and we'll put links in the show notes to those. One is called Grief is Not Sacred, and the other is called Life-Changing Conversations, which is excellent if you want to dig into Jon's work and see sort of word by word some of the conversations and the experiences he's taken people through. So today's episode is also sponsored by our friends at Rabbit Hole in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. Jon and I are going to be digging into the Cavehill expression today. One of the, I think, 7 different expressions they have out right now. So we're going to get into that. Jon, do you have your glass handy? I say we go ahead and have a pour here, and then we'll get into the breakthroughs portion. All right.
Okay.
So today, like I said, we're having the Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey from our friends at Rabbit Hole that is called Cavehill, after an area in Louisville, Kentucky. That this sounds a little morbid, but it has a beautiful cemetery, and everybody knows in that area just how Louisville it is. It is picturesque. It is right in the center, in the heart of the Highlands. But this particular whiskey has an aroma of spice and honey and fresh apple. And I think part of that is because in their mash bill, if you're not in the bourbon world, the mash bill is what ingredients they put together to create this particular expression. This one is 70% corn, 10% malted wheat, 10% malted barley. And here's what I think makes this one really unique: 10% honey malted barley. Jon, I'm sure you knew all of that, right? Right off the bat.
Of course.
And what I like about this one too, it's 95 proof, so it holds up in a cocktail. You don't wash out all of those subtle flavors if you build an old fashioned with it or something else. So it's pretty versatile. On top of that, it's got the classic Rabbit Hole finish because it's created with a toasted barrel, which they're one of the only distilleries around that warms the barrel up before they actually put the flames into it and char the inside of that barrel. So enough about this. Let's try it out. What do you say, Jon? Cheers. All right. So if you notice, if you're watching the video, Jon is almost chewing the whiskey, and so am I. And this is because we've talked about what a Kentucky chew is. Long story short, when you've got a high proof spirit, in this case, alcohol, if you move it around your palate a little bit before you take your second sip, you get a whole lot of the flavor. You acclimate your palate. You don't just, burn it out with the high alcohol. And you signal to your body, hey, you're safe. This isn't poison. You don't need to, do that knee jerk, head shake, and gag reflex. So if you're new to bourbon, give that a shot. Put a couple of drops on your tongue and kind of chew it around there. Jon, what's your take right off the bat on this Cavehill expression here?
Oh, it's lovely. Am I right in that bourbon is whiskey, but whiskey isn't necessarily bourbon?
Other way around. So here's the easiest way to say it. Every bourbon is whiskey. Not every whiskey is bourbon.
Well, I pretty much said the same damn thing, Chris.
Oh, well, then I got it backwards. It's you can't trust me. I've been drinking, Jon.
I was saying bourbon is whiskey, but whiskey isn't necessarily bourbon.
There you go. Okay. So at this point, you're a bourbon expert. We've talked about this enough. In your expert opinion, is there anything you would tell somebody about this bourbon that you wouldn't expect or that surprises you about it? I know that's a weird question.
Well, it is it's an interesting taste because the taste seems to continue to change and develop.
Mm.
So you don't need much of it to enjoy if you're looking for the flavor and experience of it. Just that taste continues through time.
I like the way you said that, the taste continues, because that's one of my favorite things about all the Rabbit Hole expressions. The finish just keeps going and you get different flavors as you leave it. To me, this almost tastes like a campfire in a good way. You get just a little bit of oaky, smoky flavor there at the end, and it just kind of lingers. And so I totally agree. Well, let's, so for anybody who hasn't experienced your work, I do want to tell them, early on here that you can always go on Monday nights to what Jon calls Solutions. And this is about a 2-hour free session where you can experience rapid resolution therapy and Jon's different modalities at a very quick pace. And also, Jon, you described this best when you said it's like putting your feet into the pool, but not necessarily going all the way into the deep end of the work. Is that a fair way to explain it?
It's a way to just get a glance at what we can do. A lot of people just hear it and experience it in that way. I'm gratified to get their letters saying that they notice a life change without having participated. And there are folks who participate even regularly because it continues to move through creating shifts that continue to build into something that some people really feel is magnificent. So it's certainly a privilege to be able to do that regularly. It's every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, but once or twice a month, we do matinees, which are easier for our friends in Europe and Australia and what have you sometimes to attend. I do have classes where I'll be talking to somebody, and then it occurs to me to just ask, "Hey, what time is it?" And he might say, "Well, it's 3 a.m., Jon." Did you stay up for this? No, I went to bed. I just set an alarm to wake up in the middle of the night and do this thing with you. It's such a privilege to have an international presence. And I have on my bucket list to meet these people doing some of the trainings we do live. So I'm excited to make trips to places that we already have some buzz going, like Netherlands and Australia and South Africa. We have somebody in the Congo watching regularly, Israel, and a bunch of places that I'm embarrassed to tell you I probably don't even know how to pronounce. Sometimes I don't know how to pronounce the name or even the name of the country. But it's a lovely experience to be sending this message out.
Well, I've been on when you've had over 110 people on and participating. And could you give people a list of some of the things that you've helped people uncover and sort through in solutions? Because if they haven't heard the first podcast, like I said, we'll put a link in the show notes so you can go back and catch that one, hear more about Jon's work. And if they haven't watched your social media or even been in a solution session before, they don't know exactly what they could get help with.
Somebody recently spoke about experiencing what she called a writer's block. This was a lady who had cleared her, she's in her 70s, cleared her schedule so that all she wanted to be doing was writing. And she had the project in mind, but felt just stagnant and over accomplished nothing. We had somebody show up who felt that there was something blocking further financial success. And we had somebody showing up who was weighing options and deeply considering suicide. So the range of things that are addressed is about as wide as I could possibly imagine. What I tell people is, rather than hunting for a parallel in the problematic situation, look for possibilities of utilizing the same perspective or solution. Even if the situation is different, the solution might not be. And so people who are writing to us about benefiting are often mentioning that different from what they were listening to me relate to somebody about, but they could apply or it just seemed to apply to them. It made the shift happen. We like people to experience shifts that are as close to effortless as possible. So in the RRT world, we don't say, what would you like to work on ever? Because to work on it, one implies work, and two implies that it's not going to be complete, it's going to be worked on. So we might rather say, what is there to resolve or clear? And that's one difference. And another difference, I believe, between what we're offering and what's being offered in other places is I take full responsibility for causing the individual that relates to me to benefit. So that seems to be very different. I've been realizing that people in the mental health industry, the educational industry, the coaching industry, and the substance abuse treatment industry share a philosophy which causes them to blame those who they didn't serve because of their inability to be of service on the individual who they failed. Mm. And I'm noticing that begins with our educational system, so that the parent gets a call saying, your son is falling asleep in his history class. As if that's her problem. Mm-hmm. If I found that people I was talking to were falling asleep, I would think it had something to do with my presentation. And I would look to be more interesting and maybe louder, or something. But I don't think that that's happening in our school systems. Those students who aren't succeeding are either blamed or their parents are blamed. I don't hear about school principals going on media and saying, we're not doing a good job. When students who they had in school fell enough through the cracks to come back and start shooting people. Mm-hmm. I don't hear them even then acknowledge that they might have let the ball drop.
Right. We did talk about this briefly on the last one, that you take full responsibility when somebody comes in to experience your work. And I've heard you say, I may not have the key to every lock. However, I'll tell you, if I don't feel like I was able to help you today, I'll take full responsibility. And you said, and I want that responsibility. Do you think the educational system and the therapy world just allows people to abdicate that responsibility instead of teaching them to own up to it?
And the substance abuse industry and the coaching industry. Yes, I think that what they have in common is you very rarely or almost never hear an acknowledgement of any fault within the provider, and yet a very active interest in blaming the person that wasn't helped.
Right.
Blame the student because he didn't pass the test, as opposed to the teacher because he didn't impart the knowledge. When I'm training in this process, people really want to get it, and are frequently there's some nervousness. Oh, I don't know whether I'll learn it right. And I let folks know it's not your job to learn it at all. It's my job to break it down and install it so that you notice an automatic shift. How can you learn it? You don't even know it. I know it, so it's my job to cause you to benefit from it, rather than to tell you it's your job to have done that. And you have a beautiful child, and there's a nice long window before your child will be exposed to the educational system. But I certainly hope and intend that by then the educators will be taking responsibility for the causing of education.
Well, I do think you're causing a shift. So let me ask it this way. What is your intention with RRT?
Well, in terms of how it affects other institutions or the influence on the individual, I think you're asking the second, right?
I think I'm asking the second, but I think that changes the former, right? Like, let me put it this way: what is the intention with the individual, and then separately, what is the macro intention of rapid resolution therapy?
Well, certainly we're looking to eliminate people's suffering. More specifically, we are wanting to make sure that the treatment is not causing significant suffering and failing to deliver what people come for. I have had numerous people, this sounds unbelievable, so I hesitate to share it with you, but I've had numerous people tell me that going for treatment for having been sexually assaulted as children or adults was significantly more painful than being sexually assaulted.
Because they have to relive it in therapy and recount it, and
yeah, sometimes because of that. It's I don't want people who are courageous, wonderful people who are looking to feel better to not feel better. And if they don't feel better, I certainly don't want them to be blamed for it. And I certainly don't want them to feel worse. So it's our intention to cause people's minds to serve them. And a lot of folks are believing that their minds or parts of their minds are against them. And nobody's mind is ever against them. No facet of your being ever means to harm the rest of you. But our minds have evolved, but partially evolved, so that there are different components of mind, and those different components of mind seem to see the world very differently and don't know what to make of each other. And hence, you often hear people say things like, I need to calm myself, motivate myself, discipline myself, control myself, followed by, and I actually don't like myself, but my counselor tells me I have to love myself. And I'm pretty angry, and I'm told I need to be forgiving, and I have to forgive my mother, forgive my father, forgive my teacher, then I have to forgive myself, then I have to love myself. And if I get those things done, then maybe if I take responsibility for things and discipline myself, I can move forward. I think it's just adding all kinds of things that don't make any sense and don't need to be done. People don't need to be forgiving themselves or other people or loving themselves in order to be living wonderful, rich, and rewarding lives that are good for themselves and good for others. No other life form is doing any of that silliness. And yet they're often thriving. Think of a black panther, gorgeous and muscular and graceful, and there it is. And how much is it forgiving itself? How much of it is loving itself? How much of it is trying to understand how its parents should have been kinder? Or all the stuff that we end up that people end up putting people through who are looking to have richer lives.
That might sound really cheeky to someone who doesn't know you or your work. So let me just highlight a couple of things, because it's not like you're just saying this and standing on a soapbox and saying this is how it should be. this is groundbreaking work that you have pioneered for 40 plus years. And I do want to tell everybody that Jon actually helped solve he was a serial killer, right? Back in the day,
No,
serial rapist.
There were a number of, yes, there was a serial rapist, and there were homicides also, and other kinds of crime. I ended up having the privilege of working with the police that were investigating some really serious, scary crime stuff. And my job was twofold: to cause the person who had been affected by this to be in better shape emotionally, and secondly, to supply information that would help the police apprehend the person who was perpetrating these things. And it was very exciting to work on numerous sex crime cases, and the one you mentioned was a serial rapist that I then learned, after being convicted and spending, I think, maybe 8 years, as I remember, in prison. Then finally was released, got a girlfriend, and murdered her. So he's back in the prison. So I'm glad that he was at least not doing that for a period of time. But I don't think that the criminal justice system has it very together either. And they seem to share with all of the other things that I just mentioned, that they don't seem to be taking responsibility for their failures. But instead, it's blame somebody else and dodge responsibility. If you don't take responsibility, I don't think you have power. So I want to have responsibility because I want the power to be able to make a difference.
Hey, what's up? This is Chris Goodman, and we'll be back to your episode in about 45 seconds. Listen, if you're ready to take your life and your business up to your next level of success, freedom, fulfillment, fun, all of it, you need the help of a top coach. All the best in the world at anything have a great coach in their corner. They can help you identify your goals, develop a plan to achieve them, give you accountability, give you support, give you guidance all along your way up to the top. Now, look, most coaches are created equally, we'll say. They don't perform equally, however. So if you want to get the most out of your coaching, you need to work with somebody who has a proven track record of success. And that's where I come in. I have over 15,000 hours of coaching people just like you. And after coaching countless entrepreneurs, CEOs, executives, influencers, real estate agents, you name it, I've probably coached them. I can do the same for you. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and contact me. Go to GoodmanCoachingInc.com. That's GoodmanCoachingInc.com. Fill out the quick application, and let's talk about coaching you to your goals. Now let's get back to the episode. I think that's part of what your work does, is it helps people transition from I am a victim into brain experienced some things and brain doesn't know how to process them through. So brain keeps reliving them. Therefore, I am in this loop over and over and over. And your work has a way of, and I'm speaking from personal experience, has a way of throwing a monkey wrench into that loop and breaking it and then letting it clear through. Actually, you described this. You said it's like if I had a colander and I put a bunch of clumps of sand and, piles of sand in that colander and was straining it out, if a big clump of it was caught in there, we wouldn't blame the strainer and we wouldn't necessarily blame the clump of sand. We would just notice this is not clearing through. And your work has a way of dissolving those clumps through painless I'm going to call it conversation because that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, well,
my
that's
experience,
a wonderful description of it, and I thank you. So, lots of folks come in because they've been suffering or not doing well and would like to have that remedied. But we also have the privilege of meeting with some people who are doing very well. And I remember being surprised that when that first happened, and it was many years ago. And I remember this fellow who came in, and I recognized him. Most people would recognize him, and I said, "Oh, good to meet you. What would you like?" And he said, "I'd like to be more effective in playing baseball." And I said, "Well, I'm not even hardly able to play baseball at all. And you'd like to be more effective, and I believe you're like in the top 5 ball players on the planet. So what do you want? You know, you already get paid massive amounts of money for playing a game. What can I do for you?" He said, "I'd like to play better." And I said, "Most people know who you are because of how well you play." And he said, "You know what? There's a very significant difference between being the 4th best and the 3rd best, let alone the 2nd best. So if I could just get a bit better, I wouldn't have to get much better in order to be one level higher. And one level higher is huge." And I said, "Well, let's make that happen." And we did. And that was really exciting. And then people have come in who are doing things really well. I mean, things I would never have thought of. I had people from a international dart team.
Really?
I mean, that's what they do. They throw darts at targets, wanting to be still better at aim or whatever. Bowlers didn't surprise me so much, but I was certainly surprised by the dart team for some reason. I didn't know it was such a, I guess I want to say, serious pursuit. But also others who are innovative leaders and yet look for still an additional edge. And it occurred to me that you, Chris, probably do another number of things really well, but the 2 things I've been able to observe are your ability to coach people in order to significantly increase their success in their professional success, their business success, their sales success, and other areas like that. But I've also enjoyed listening to conversations you have with people. I think you're do an exquisite job of getting folks to share things with you that would be of real interest to others. I always look forward to conversations with you for that reason. And I thought that if you were open to it, we might even today, be thinking about how perhaps some of this could apply to an improvement for you in those areas. And that's been happening lately. So it's been quite interesting. I've been a guest on numerous podcasts where the most of the podcast was doing a process with the person who was the host.
Well, I'm happy to do that, Jon. I think that's the show's called Bourbon and Breakthroughs. We've got our bourbon. Let's have a breakthrough. And I'll be the guinea pig. And for everybody who, again, hopefully by now you've explored some of Jon's work while we've been talking here, clicking on those links in the show notes. Jon just did a Facebook Live with an influencer who has hundreds of thousands of followers, and 15,000 people tuned in live to at least have some level of experience with Jon's work. So if I can go first here, and Jon, learn anything.
That was the strangest freaking thing. This gal is a superstar, I think. I mean, I'm amazed by her, and I knew of her, and she knew of me, and we connected, but I'd never met her. And she happened to be not that far from where I live, and reached out, and I went to see her, and I'm sensing, wow, I'm going to be with this, star, and so I'm excited, and then we're doing this live thing, and she says, "How are you?" And I said, "How are you?" And she said, I'm very nervous." And I said, "Oh, what's going on?" And she says, "Well, it's kind of, I've admired you, and it's really kind of scary to meet you for the first time." You're nervous being with me? I mean, it just was, and she said, "Very."
Well, you're an intimidating guy, Jon. What can we say?
Gosh, it was so interesting, and she's so charming, and somehow it wound around to that. This whole visit was about using this process to eliminate what she was calling social anxiety for herself, so that she'd be first immediately comfortable with me, and then moving forward with others. And this is somebody who can get up in front of thousands of people and change their lives with a song. That's Chandra Lynn. Check her out on YouTube. I think she's amazing, and it was such a privilege to connect with her there. So if we were going to shift, change, or improve something that would pay off for you, my friend, does something show up in terms of coaching? Does something show up in terms of podcasting, or anything else? Those are just the two places you show up that I'm quite impressed.
Well, thank you, first of all, for the kind words. I do appreciate it. And I work hard to make it look easy, I guess. No. But if I could do anything to improve, I think the way that I've entered the coaching world has two sides of the coin. I have to have an extremely high level of effectiveness in getting people results, or else, what good am I as a coach? But I also have to have this public face, this marketing side of me that is willing to get out there in front of hopefully millions of people and put my work into their hands so they can experience it. And you're right, the two ways I do that are through coaching and the podcast. But I think where I can be much more effective is in expanding whatever it takes to reach more people. So I would say that's probably not on the skill set side. That's probably on the willingness to do whatever it takes to get in front of, let's say, millions of people. Does that make sense?
So as you consider that, Chris, I wonder, are there things that have come to mind that you might have been better off to implement but haven't, or is it that you're looking for additional ways of reaching that to become to come to mind so that they can be implemented? Are you looking to implement what you already figured out, or figure out things, or both? But if it's both, pick one.
It's both. And I think, well, how could I pick one? If I picked one, what would that look like? I think
Would you like to be implementing, noticing those ideas that have come to mind, and be even more efficiently or effectively implementing those ideas?
Okay, so that comes to mind. Yes. The effectively communicating what coaching can do for people by showing them. So more conversations like this, or case study clients, et cetera.
So I guess, yeah, I get it. So there is a lovely level of competence, effectiveness that you've reached in both generating ideas and following through. So for a moment, just sense that. I would think with appreciation, just sense that, sense those as gifts. And as you sense them, you may sense a gratefulness that's what you have been experiencing, and there's pleasure in that. And then and that's where we begin. And then as we are there, what's been coming to my mind really since the conversation about that began is I'm seeing different than what my setup was. I was saying which of them, and I'm seeing both of them, and I'm seeing you having these thoughts on breakthroughs, that things. It's kind of like, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. And I'm seeing those pop up into your awareness. And as they do, what I'm seeing you doing is being, to quote your last podcast name, relentless in the capturing of what your mind provides you with. So it's like all of a sudden there's an idea, and that idea wasn't there 10 minutes ago, to your knowledge, and all of a sudden it's there. So when this idea just shows up, and it's a new idea, think of sometimes you wake up maybe, and there's a realization of what you were dreaming about.
Mm-hmm.
You might wake up and saying, wow, that was an interesting dream. It was about this. Do you remember the dream you had the day before yesterday, by the way?
The dream? No.
No, because that material is lovely, but it's not so very durable consciously.
Mm.
So I like the word relentless when it applies to you capturing the ideas that your wonderful mind provides you with. So, um, um, wow, that's interesting. Later, I should give that more thought. Isn't okay, because that's like that about the dream you had. But later, you won't probably be giving that more thought because that just shows up then. It's like it's the 4th of July. I'm thinking of it. It's like this amazing firework display. You better just like it right then,
Mm-hmm.
rather than try to enjoy it the next day. So how will you capture the ideas that are going to begin popping into your consciousness that will provide such a benefit? How will you capture them? Will you capture them in writing? Will you capture them with an audio?
Yeah, I usually capture them. I write them down in one place and then revisit them when I have time to come back to them, all in the same place.
Um, so do you have, so is this place that you're going to capture them something you have with you and is available to you?
Yes, right now?
Well, no,
Or
not just now, but most of the time.
yes.
So what do you have, like a pad in your pocket or
It's a note in my phone and in an app there, so I can just wherever I am, I can capture that and put it in the same
beautiful.
place.
So I'm seeing you capturing those things as the thing comes to mind. That's this gift to be captured. Could you um, be still more appreciative?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Um, so well, you might have been more appreciative if it came from someone else. So what I want to suggest to you is where you are receiving the gift isn't where the gift is being generated from.
Fair. Okay.
So as you receive it, um, saying, I just had a really good idea, which would imply that I created this idea, isn't actually accurate
Mm-hmm.
because it was created from something different from where it was received. So if you think through that lens with me, which might be a bit different, then um, then appreciate that as a gift from someone else who took the time to come up with something really valuable to you.
Mm.
You know, at some point, your child will start to gift you with things, and the ones you'll like best are the ones that the child created.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm seeing that kind of um, uh, um, appreciation directed toward these ideas that are such gifts for you. You do good. I asked you if you did something thinking we could improve it, but you already do it beautifully. But what we can improve is maybe not the record keeping, but the excited appreciation of the gift. So this thing is going to be occurring to you, Chris, and when it does, you'll be receiving it like you would receive a gift from someone who not only who bought you something, but actually created it for you. Because it wasn't there to just go buy for you. This is something individually. It's like getting a pair of boots and you say, oh, who made those? And the answer is, I made them for you after studying your feet and how you walk. And your ideas are then, as they come to mind, they're a gift that's custom made for you. And hence, there's going to be great exuberance and excitement in the receiving of them. As you think about it being like that, that's my intention for you. And it would be a significant edge. It would be, I believe, an even a very deep improvement on what's already good. Is there anything about that wouldn't be totally okay?
No, I love the idea of that, and think that's absolutely somewhere it can be more effective.
And you think of where you get the gift from as separate from you who's receiving it. In other words, something just comes to mind as a gift for your wife. You weren't causing the thing to come to mind.
Right.
And then it came to mind. So you can't really, it's not okay to claim credit for it.
Right.
And instead to be appreciative of the idea as a gift. See, if you claim credit for it, then it gets hard to really turn the volume up on it, because it's too close to arrogance.
Right.
And you're not good at arrogance. So we don't want it to be close to that. So it's not, it's like it's not that you have to explain it to anybody else, but just you get it. I was just gifted with this really cool idea. And so there's a deep appreciation, but it's not like an appreciation of self, like I am just this beautiful fountain of ideas that I admire so deeply.
I do relate to this because, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just did. But
Please.
You probably can't read it on my board back here. This is where I keep track of really good ideas when I'm coaching that come to me, come to clients, that just pop up, that we co-create. And one of them, I remember John Maxwell saying, we need to be rivers, not reservoirs, for great ideas, for appreciation, for gratitude, for all those things. They need to be able to flow through us and not just us store them up and hold on to them and, clutch onto them. And that's what this feels like, the idea of being open enough to receive ideas from wherever they come, not having to attach my ego to it or anything about my identity as a coach, a business owner, a father, a husband, etc. And stay rooted in appreciation and gratitude and openness to see what that idea might turn into.
Yeah. So excitement, receiving it. Then later, there's an entirely different process that comes with evaluating and deciding how to utilize. And not everything that's the gift will end up being later perhaps utilized. And you don't want to wait for the utilization for the gratefulness, but to have it become instant with the receiving of that. So I'm seeing that for you. I'm wondering if we were inspired, as your mind is setting up to be receiving receiving these creative gifts with excitement and appreciation. What mythical or wild life form might inspire moving forward with that?
Ooh. As soon as you said mythical, a phoenix came to mind.
And as you see Phoenix, how do you see Phoenix? Do you see Phoenix still or moving?
Moving, and in a very large, an absurdly large bird that would be bigger than any realistic life form we know of.
Nice. Just do this. Take a breath, exhale slow, closing your eyes. And after you've completely exhaled, shift to Phoenix and then inhale, focus there. And then eyes open. Okay. So that's how long that takes.
Okay.
And mind is wonderfully responsive to symbols, and will be certainly responsive to that. And I could have come up with something really good too. It would have worked fine, but not that well, because your mind creates the exact key that will open the lock. It creates exactly what your own mind will best respond to. So just doing that is a lift in that direction. And if you were to do that, just inhale, seeing Phoenix, how many seconds would you estimate that will take?
2.
Yeah. So, gosh, if you did it 60 times a day, it's not going to take more than a minute.
Right.
And I certainly won't ask you to do it 60 times a day, even though you probably can find a minute, particularly since you don't really need to spend it all at once. Just 3 seconds here, 2 seconds there, 4 seconds there. You simply inhale Phoenix. You know what it represents. It represents this excited appreciation for the idea. And I would say that excited and appreciation of the idea doesn't have anything to do with any evaluation of it. That I'm finding people are getting stuck when they're attempting to create and edit simultaneously.
Yeah.
So an edit is even an evaluation as to whether it has worth. So it's just excitement about the idea, and you can create it as a note, and perhaps just verbally dictate it into the note so it's quickly there, and it only takes you as long as it takes to say it, and then you've got it. That's all. So maybe you just say it, and then later you have the fun of sorting and unpacking all of the gifts, which is a separate thing from the receiving them with gratitude. And gratitude sounds somber to me. I mean, it's lovely, but it doesn't sound too
Enthusiastic.
It doesn't sound like somebody's having an orgasm.
Right. It's
It
not a
sounds a little
sensational word, right?
more sort of church-like
That's a
than
great way to put it.
sexy. So I'm asking that you receive these ideas with excitement. Like, yeah,
Yeah, the word passion comes to my mind.
yeah, passion,
Mhm.
but also just sheer excitement. Like, wow, thanks,
Hmm.
yay, like, yay, thanks. Um, um, and you don't even need the thanks with the excitement, because the excitement it doesn't get better than that. I mean, you do something for your wife, she looks at it and it's exciting. You don't even need anything. Anything else isn't as good as that.
Right.
So your excitement, so I'm seeing you excited as the idea is gifted.
Hmm.
And some of those ideas will come as you meet with somebody. And some of them will just come in other times during the day. I have uh, what comes to me comes often as I'm in a connection looking to be of benefit to somebody. And sometimes I'll think of things that I've already had familiarity with, and I know they have effectiveness and share them.
Mm-hmm.
But at its very best, I'm thinking of things I've never heard of. And when that's happening, I think of that individual like as a muse. And I'll say that, you're like my muse. I'm going to be later sharing some of what I have been able to experience and come up with here with you being that muse for me. Not everybody will be the same amount of muse, but this stuff will have value all over. I'm seeing that popping up. I'm seeing you think of a popcorn popper, but one of those things that's in a glass kind of square, and it's on wheels, sort of, but maybe it's not being pushed anywhere, but it just is. And then all of a sudden, there's all these pops, and the pops are the gifts. Those are the ideas. They're just being generated in great abundance. Think of that popcorn thing just exploding in volume. Think the sound and what you see visually. And that's the ideas that will be showing up that will be, I mean, these are ideas you can definitely take to the bank. Not all of them, but some of them later. Initially, just get excited about every gift. And that's the whole deal on this process of how do you get the rest of your mind into it. Well, a lot of that was my job. So some of what I said in talking to you about this created visuals. Some of it you were hearing. There was more of that than generalities. What I'm teaching people is how do you communicate in ways that cause things to shift automatically, rather than give people assignments that they're supposed to work on. And that's done sometimes by specifics and symbols that deeply reach the inner mind and cause this lovely expansion.
Mm.
And that's it. You're done.
Well, thank you, my friend, first of all. And it's amazing how much more centered I do feel and how much more abundant I feel. And I know this might be a bit of a sort of truncated version of how your work normally is one-on-one because we're on a podcast, but I find it hard to communicate how much more, I'm just going to keep saying abundant, my mind feels right now. It feels less, for lack of a better way to say it, less constipated, right? About where an idea has to come from, and less white knuckle on getting a result or get, hard driving and hard charging towards some particular destination or outcome. I feel much more open to receive. And this is something I have been working on since everybody listening probably listened to Chris Harder's episode. He was the first one in the Bourbon and Breakthrough series. And this was something that he said that really, stuck for me, was his willingness to be open as he gets older, as he gets more successful, to more opportunities, to more collaborations, to more ways to give back, to more ways to get involved and help people, and to just be willing to receive those ideas and gifts and suggestions as they come along. And I can definitely tell my nervous system downregulated. I feel way more calm. My heart beats slower. Bourbon still tastes great, so that hasn't changed.
We've both been affected by a culture which suggests that hard work and rigorous effort is the solution to success, and those who are successful were willing to put in this hard work. And so when you talk about white knuckling something or efforting something, that's all from that message. But you make it look like those things you're really good at are recreation rather than effort. So as you celebrate being gifted, and I like that word, as a teacher, as a trainer, and as an influencer, and as a lover, think of this person who's really intent on being a wonderful lover, and says to you, this is very important to me, and I'm willing to do the work and do whatever it takes. And I'm kind of thinking, well, that sure as hell doesn't sound like much fun.
Do the work, right?
How about if you're just swept off your feet and all kinds of things just come to you because they're delicious? And might not that be a more desirable attribute in your lover than her willingness to do the work necessary?
I think you're right. There is, and I've noticed this especially with my highest performing, we'll say, clients. Somebody I don't think she'd mind me saying, so her name is Paige Champion.
Oh, I'm a little disappointed because I'm talking about all of that excitement as a lover, and you went right into, well, yeah, as I'm thinking about my highest performing, and I'm going, yes. And then it went back to a little more safer ground there.
I never want the words disappointing and lover to be used in the same conversation with me at all. So let's not say that was disappointing to you. But here's what I meant was, I see this in some of the most successful people I've worked with or been around, this limiting belief, for lack of a better way to put it, that if they don't work really hard, they are not even eligible for great success, a great love life, expansive relationships, etc. That it's somehow not even available to them. And I like what you're saying, which is, what if it was much more, what if it was not so complicated and difficult, and it had nothing to do with us on a personal level, and there was something bigger at play, and we just had to receive that? That's what I'm taking away from that, in a way, in at least one way.
I like it. And so maybe the key to wonderful professional success and really amazing sex don't have to be two very different.
Yeah, I love that.
In terms of, it's more about excitement and appreciation and just being in it, rather than a willingness to do whatever it takes.
So for anybody who's just catching this, we're talking about sex, excitement, appreciation, mind-blowing gifts that come out of the ether, just specifically customized for you and your success and your breakthroughs. And we're having great bourbon doing it. That's a pretty good day there, Jon.
Chris, it's always amazing, and I'm hesitant to tell you because it sounds a little.
Well, now you have to.
But all right. Well, I was talking about people being amused, yes, and saying things that I hadn't said previously, mm-hmm, but where it's a gift from the interchange. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've ever said this stuff before. So if you're hearing it for the first time, so am I.
I love it. I love it. And
and thanks for the gift.
Well, spirit is with us today for sure, right? It's thank you. Jon, all jokes aside, you always have something revealing to offer. And it always shifts the way I think, and it always gives me something to take into conversation in the future. And I think about how I used to be, which was very black and white. In the legal world, it was, does this make me a better lawyer? Yes or no? Get the hell out of the way if it doesn't. And it was so, like I said earlier, just constipated. And I think I missed a lot of this in those years. Just being open to other ideas, being open to, the way I want to say it is, softer ways of receiving things that didn't have to be so hard charging. So thank you for that. And before we start to wrap up here, I want to read something. I captured this from our last conversation, and I just had a feeling that this would be appropriate to bring up. And here we are.
Amazing. What is that?
You said, I'd like to teach people that when we ask good questions, we can get really good answers about how people can go from deep, ongoing emotional pain into joyful and productive lives quickly and painlessly. And I think what we just did together was a pretty good example of how quickly and painlessly your work can carry them through, even if it's a subtle shift, but also those life-changing shifts. So I've come to know you as somebody who lives and breathes this work. We were joking, if you were to retire on a beach, you'd find a way to open your laptop and offer RRT to people. So I know you live and breathe this, but I think
what a horrific notion, being stuck on a beach, right, without any of this to do.
Without any life-changing work, right?
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to highlight that I think that's how you show up every time. And for people because I do want to highlight this too, that your work isn't only available through you. You have trained hundreds, if not you've trained thousands of people. And in fact, I want to say this out loud, that one of my top clients has experienced the most tremendous growth in their entire life, has changed the entire trajectory of their career, pulled their family back together when it was almost pulled completely apart because of them. And it's all because they have worked with somebody you trained through RRT.
Oh, that's lovely.
And I don't know if I've ever told you that. That's a fairly recent development.
That's new.
Yeah. So I'll borrow from Jay Papazan, who was a guest early on in Bourbon Breakthroughs. He said, I want to infect the world with this work. He was talking about the one thing, but I think that's what you're doing here, Jon. So if people even got a sliver of an example of what's possible there, and of course they can go to Solutions on Monday nights. We have a link in the show notes there where you can go 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, just about every Monday of the year, where you can experience this for free and get a taste of it. Jon, as we wrap up here, where would you like people to start with you? Is it Solutions? Is it something else?
Well, if somebody is addressing something personally concerning and wants a good fit, we have somebody available to meet with you and really listen, and then make the most effective pairing with a person to assist. Sometimes that's me, and yet there are others, and we have a program of specialists who have gone through rigorous training and testing. So those are folks I know will do a good job with people. But we can also say, hey, I think with what's going on for you, this particular person is going to have an extra edge. So we have somebody who just does that. There is Solutions, and there are all kinds of opportunities that are about learning to utilize this process. And there, when I'm meeting with groups of people for that, I'm looking for everyone to experience significant personal breakthroughs, learn how to be with people that they care about in ways that will be uplifting to those folks, particularly when that person's going through a rough patch. Mm-hmm. And then there are people who just see this as a wonderful career opportunity, because you get to actually get in there and make a difference for people. I think it's the most rewarding thing in the world. And I'm finding people are looking to be able to both make the contribution and enjoy lucrative benefits from being able to do that and shift others. So there are all those various things that are available. If you contact us or check out what's there at rapidresolutiontherapy.com, and that's where those things are showing up there. If you have fun listening to podcasts, there are a whole lot of podcasts that have been recorded on all kinds of issues. I mean, we have podcasts where the podcast host wanted to uncover and clear what seemed to be an early traumatic sexual event for them. And I mean, so I'm on her show doing that work with her, and all of those are available for people to listen to. There's Solutions, which is a nice way to kind of just check it out and see if it even makes any sense as a way to move forward.
And Jon, can I also offer that you train practitioners as well? So you can be a student of the work to experience the work, or you can be a student of the work to learn more about the methodology and how to implement it in any conversation. Because I don't think this has to be a heavy-handed conversation.
Yeah.
Any conversation. Hence the name of one of your books, Life-Changing Conversations. So yeah, you can.
So that's what we're teaching.
Expand your skill set. This is part of how we came to know each other, expanding your skill set as a current coach, therapist, social worker, all of the above. I'd say if you have any interest in personal growth, it's appropriate to learn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jon. So, I have to ask you, if we were to take Jon and turn him into a cocktail of some kind, what would go into that cocktail?
Well, I haven't touched one of these since I was, I think, younger than you. But what comes to mind when you ask what cocktail? I'm remembering this thing when I was just kind of even learning about that you could go have a drink that was called a White Russian. And that was strong, and it was creamy, and it was deceptively powerful, but it was sweet. So I guess if I had to be a cocktail, wouldn't be bad to be one of those for a while.
It definitely would not be bad to be strong, deceptively powerful, sweet. And, I don't know how somebody can be creamy, but if they can pull it off, it's you. It's the smooth.
It's kind of like rich, It's like,
right. Yeah. So if you were to put one of these in front of you, what would it be called?
Oh, well, I sort of gave you the name of it before I described it. So I didn't create one. I just remembered one.
Well, we wouldn't call Jon the White Russian. That wouldn't make much sense.
That wouldn't make much sense.
So we got to come up with something. I respect your answer, and I am with excitement and passion ready to receive another gift of an answer.
A different name for a cocktail. So how about strong, rich, delightful?
Okay, we'll take that.
Yeah. I'm not going to quit my day job to start naming drinks, that's for sure.
I always feel a little bad when I do this to people because I kind of put you on the spot to come up.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's a little more fun than if you have time to calculate it and carefully craft an answer. So
I would think, yeah.
As I've gotten to know you, I would say that's a perfect description, though. Strong, rich in lots of ways, delightful, sweet, deceptively powerful for sure. My friend, thank you for spending the time with us, for talking about your work, and for what absolutely will cause people to go explore your work, get into it, and start to change their lives and have their own breakthroughs too.
Thank you, Chris. Lovely to be connecting with you.
You too. Well, friends, check out the links in the show notes. If you haven't already, scroll down there. You can see solutions. You can get involved as a student. You can explore Jon's work firsthand with him or work with someone he's trained. And as always, if you found value in this episode, take just a second, share it with somebody or post it on social media and help us get the word out there about Jon's work and how it can change lives, including my own. So thank you for that today, Jon. All right, everyone. We'll catch you on the next episode of Bourbon and Breakthroughs. And thanks once again to our friends over at Rabbit Hole for the delicious Cavehill. Guys, this is something you can go out and get in just about any liquor store that sells especially premium in spirits. And I highly recommend this. I prefer it neat. Go ahead and put it in an old fashioned and see what you think. But I've never met anybody who doesn't like it. So thanks again to our friends at Rabbit Hole. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Bourbon and Breakthroughs. Cheers, y'all. See you soon.